So there's a lot to unpack there. They're great questions. Number one, on the resilience, so I'll take them in order, the sort of flood resilience side is, as folks know, the county is in charge of the bayous and the channels all over Harris County. And then in unincorporated areas outside of the cities, we're in charge of the drainage. Inside of the cities, whichever one of our 34 cities, it's the city that maintains the roads and that drainage system. And so what we've done is many things. Number one, we've sped up the drainage projects that we're responsible for. So where they're going to take 5 years, they're now taking 3.5. We're a year in at this point. When Imelda happened, we updated that list so that the areas that flooded during Imelda, not because the bayous couldn't take the water, but because the drainage wasn't good enough, we're working on that. We have upped our detention requirements. So that means that when a developer builds a new development, they're required to create enough detention basin to collect as much water as they're going to be displacing by that development. And if we required any more detention than what we're requiring, it would be considered a taking. We would have to pay the developer for that. So this is literally as stringent as it gets. The problem is that's only for developments in unincorporated Harris County. And so we've asked all of our cities, if they want to receive funds from Harris County, from the bond, they need to adopt more stringent detention requirements. We're starting with detention requirements that aren't even as strict as ours, but theirs is so lax. And so we're hoping that they're gonna do that. We're also hoping that the cities will prioritize their drainage, because our bayous, our channels can be as good as ever, but if the water can't go from the streets into the bayou, that place is gonna flood regardless. So we're working on that. The other big issue is that of, we're not done with the investments. There was a $2.5 billion bond, and that's good. But when you ask people why $2.5 billion, why wasn't it more money or less money? That money was just pulled out, for whatever politically expedient reasons. But if you look at really the need of the county in terms of being flood resilient, is much more than that, into the tens of billions. And so that's part of what we're asking is, as we have new detention requirements, as we disperse the money as quickly as possible, we prioritize the projects in areas that have been underserved, that are worst hit first. So those are, we've reshuffled or created an order of projects that serves the worst hit communities first, and not the wealthiest communities first. We also need to recognize we're going to need a lot more investments. And so that's a question that we're asking right now with a community task force. That's not all engineers and developers, it's community members. And then they have a technical advisory council, all our departments working together, asking, okay, in the next 5-10 years, not the next 30 years, 40 years, but 5-10 years, how much more money are we going to need? What more regulations? What more land preservation? What are we going to need? But we are going to need all the cities to step up, and neighboring counties too.
Talk about that Hurricane Harvey recovery part too also.
Yes, so on the recovery side, that is separate from the bond, right? So that's $1 billion that we got from HUD. And that was to do affordable housing, to do some infrastructure projects, to do some buyouts, to do some rebuilding of homes, and reimbursements for homeowners who spent their own funds rebuilding after Harvey and now need to get reimbursed. So the affordable housing, the infrastructure, all those projects have all moved according to schedule. The reimbursement program is slow, but it's getting there. The rebuilding program is very, very, very far behind. And so we have families who, it breaks my heart because they're years after Harvey and they still haven't received the funds. And so, we have to be honest as to the reason for that. Part of it is we didn't have a good consultant, a good team leading that project. When we got here, we realized it was behind. We switched out the team. It's now moving as effectively as it possibly can be done. But the other thing to remember is those projects from HUD, they're rarely anywhere in the country on schedule. There's a federal site where you can see all of these disaster recovery projects that is administered by HUD, and over 90% of them all around the United States are behind, just like ours are. Why? Because
they're behind. The question becomes, what's realistic from an expectation for those people who have been impacted, by the hurricane and still haven't gotten results? Are we
Right.
talking, you know,
And then that's the thing is that it's designed to be slow and that it shouldn't be. And so that's a conversation that we need to have with our representatives to Congress. When anybody who's been flooded has applied for FEMA assistance, you receive that aid within days, quickly, very quickly. It arrives, it gets out the door, and we're good. And the county's quick at dispersing that, and the federal money flows fast. The programs that come from HUD, even though they're disaster recovery, so in theory they should be designed to be quick, they're mired in red tape. So at this point,
and I don't want to get caught up in their red tape, because I'm hearing you say it's slow, you made some changes in the consultant, you're trying to speed it up. It is faster than it used to be, but the system—
no, but we've hit a wall. That's what I'm saying is it's designed to be slow. It can't, because that's why it's not just us, it's all over the country. These HUD programs, they should not, if they're going to be for disaster recovery, they need to be modeled after the FEMA programs. They need to be modeled after the quick response program, but they're designed to be just as slow as a long-term infrastructure project. So it takes a lot. It's impossible to do it fast. While we owe that to the community, is designed to be slow. And so what I've talked to the federal government about, I've talked to our congressional delegation, and just fundamentally needs to change is when it comes to aiding people post-disaster, we can't put it through this channel that it has to go to HUD, then it has to go to the GLO, then it has to come to us, and it's designed to be very, very slow. So right now, the state is doing the part about the rebuilding. They're just as slow as it ever was. They're just as slow with the city program.
What I'm hearing you say, Judge, is the people are just at the mercy of a slow system.
And it's sad. I mean, it's awful. It's awful.
I want to go ahead and move on, because reality check is the system is slow. For all intents and purposes, is broken.
And it shouldn't be, but we've done everything we can to get it fast, and we need to change that at the federal level.